Doug Karsch, Scott Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Open lines, 248-539-9797. We asked, what's the priority in terms of in-house free agents, Schroder or Beasley? We do it because Trajan Langdon just addressed the media, and there wasn't a lot of bold proclamations. It's funny because in retrospect, it makes what Steve Yzerman said last week about pursuing big-time free agents feel like a bold proclamation. It makes it feel like he said a ton. Considering what Jeff Greenberg said this morning, which wasn't much, the Tigers GM, and now what Trajan Langdon said today, and I'm not mad at him. Like, you can do whatever you want. I don't judge you on how you perform in a press conference or in a radio interview, although I can be won over. I am susceptible to that for sure. I can be. I admit that it's a hole in my game. If A.J. Hinch talking on the morning show well before they were winning made me an A.J. Hinch fan. Now that they are winning, it just feels like every time he's on the air, it's brilliant insight. I did talk to another coach, by the way, in a different sport that told me the A.J. Hinch interviews on our morning show are some of the most insightful, interesting to listen to sports interviews he's ever heard, because A.J. says a lot without basically hurting the franchise and saying anything stupid.
He's very diplomatic and yet insightful at the same time.
Very insightful. And he won't call players out necessarily, but he will mention when there is more needed.
Yes.
Yeah. But all right, here we go. What's the priority? From Brian. Schroder, he showed his value during the most crucial time. Antoine in Detroit says Beasley, shooters are necessary. He's a role player who wants to be here. Unnamed texter, prioritize Malik. Ivy will fill the role that Dennis filled after his injury. Tyler driving around in a truck. Beasley, need that three-point shooter. Anthony says, Dennis Schroder for sure. He can run the point and give Cade a breather. Also clutch from 15 feet. Tyler in Monroe says, very simple. It's Beasley. The three-point shooting is a need on this roster. He'll be more expensive, though. Mike in a car in Clarkson says Schroder. Rick in Sterling Heights says, I would prioritize Malik Beasley simply because Ivy will be back off injury. Bob in Trenton says Schroder, defense and versatility. From Chris and Armada, all 10 texts will say Beasley. They did not. Gator, what would you make the priority? Now, that doesn't mean you can't bring them both back. Let's be clear about that. But which would you make the priority?
Because I do think he can bring them both back. The guy I'm letting go for sure is Hardaway. And I thought he did a great job with the Pistons this year. But I'm counting on Jaden Ivey being a major performer for this team next year, and he'll take the minutes that the starters' minutes that Hardaway was getting. But between the two, to play along, it's Beasley. Guys who shoot 40% from beyond the arc, they don't fall off trees. So you have to find them. And if you've got one, you hang on to him. I recognize that he was not very good shooting-wise for this team in the playoffs, and it was a disappointment. But I think that is that's not what you should expect every time this team makes the playoffs. I think it was just not a good round for him. And it's nothing against Schroder, because I do, like I said, dude, I want to bring them both
bring back. Him back.
Yeah, bring them both back, because I think Schroder plays an incredible role in his team as a guy coming off the bench with all that experience. He's got ice in his veins. Moments are never too big for him. But he's also not a starting player. He knows his role, and I think he does it well. But the shooter is what you need to have. And the fact that Malik Beasley has been so vocal and passionate about wanting to be a Detroit Piston in the future, yeah, it's a perfect match.
So the Beasley thing is interesting because, as you mentioned, he didn't shoot it at the same clip in the postseason as he did in the regular season. And the question becomes, does that mean he's not a clutch performer? Well, here's the evidence that tells you that there isn't a correlation between postseason basketball and Beasley not shooting it. Last year, 6 games with Milwaukee, he shot 44% from three. Back in 2019 with Denver, he played in 14 playoff games and shot 40.4% from three. In between, Minnesota, 6 games in 2022, 32%. With the Lakers in 2023, 27%. This year at Detroit, right, 34% in the 6 games. He can do it. It's just shooters got to shoot, and they got to. Look, Boston had a terrible day in Game 1. It does happen.
Yeah, and to get it up to 34% with the Pistons this year, it all came in that last game.
Yep.
But
That's how percentages work, though.
Yeah, sure, it is, without question. But I mean, during the season, there was consistency during the season. When you play 82 games and you shoot 42%, I mean, that's consistency. So I need that consistency for the regular season because you got to get the wins to get in the playoff position and to get in playoff seeding. Now, if I think when you get to the playoffs next year, it's a whole different playoff system to see how he's doing. If he's not shooting well, then don't rely on him and go somewhere else. But he has to be on this team. He's a necessary piece to this puzzle to get to be a better basketball team.
Kang, you said something in the office the other day, and we haven't brought it up in the air yet, but you don't think one of those guys is going to be here next year.
Yeah, I think I think the odd man out is going to be Dennis Schroder. And I think he's one of those guys that now what he is in the league, he's almost like a specialist, a playoff specialist. You know, I think there's a reason why he's been moved around so many times. It's not because he's bad or no one wants him. It's because he's good and he plays a purpose. Like he has a certain role. It's exactly what the Pistons needed for this run. They needed a veteran guy who's been there before, who can play defense, score some buckets, and has a confidence in himself. You know, a certain swag that this young team was lacking. I think there's always going to be a team in the playoffs that needs that guy.
But why can't that be Detroit?
Because there's one thing Gator mentioned, the Jaden Ivey injury. He should be back healthy next year. I still personally believe Marcus Sasser has a lot more to give. And also, you kind of want to find out. And if you're wrong, it's okay. He's on his rookie deal. He's got 2 years left. Those are cheaper, more sustainable options. Trajan Langdon did mention the word sustainable. I know we've heard that a lot from all the GMs around here lately, but they want, Schroeder's going to cost more than Marcus Sasser is. Let's just be honest, right?
Yep.
And they might have to spend some of that money on Malik Beasley because three-point shooting is such a necessity in the league. You know,
it's funny because Hardaway and Schroeder are both in their low 30s, early 30s. When you get to that point in your career, I always feel like those players are in a very... like they're looking for that last money cannon contract, but they're also looking for the ring. And they have to weigh these two things. Clock's ticking. My career's winding down. What's more important to me? I want to get a ring. I want to score big. And I mean, these are individual questions, individual answers for each. Like what's more important to you? And it's okay, whatever you answer.
And has there been an athlete like that's? I mean, this is recency bias, but like Dennis Schroder came here. I don't think a lot of people even knew his game, who he was necessarily, and that they've embraced more than, they knew, right? Like, oh man, I'm a big Schroder fan all of a sudden. Yeah. I bet you we heard a lot of that during the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I mean, he had almost a cockiness to him.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
But it came with authority. I mean, he was good for this team.
God, he was. He quickly became a fan favorite. I've always been a fan of him in his career. And so I was really excited when they got him. But, yeah, he was elevated up the list of he almost put on. If he leaves, okay, he's going to take on this cult hero status. Like, the people feel like he is missed.
You know how, like, our teams, like, when the Tigers went and got Aubrey Huff and who was the hitter?
Aubrey Huff was
the pitcher, Jared Washburn.
Jared Washburn.
And that didn't work out. The Schroeder move was a move that worked out. When you do something at a deadline to help your team, this is what you're looking for. I think you're right, Doug. It will be referenced. Like, we need a Schroeder move.
Mm-hmm. But it's also, I mean, the Pistons were his 9th team. And he actually spent 2 different stints with the Lakers. So, I mean, there's something there that he's a vagabond. He's just somebody who kind of helps the team out and moves on to the next team.
All right, it's Carson Anderson. Something happened in Major League Baseball last night that was hysterical. And the question is, what would you do in this situation? We will get to that today at 11:02 here on Karsch and Anderson on 97.1 The Ticket.